Row 23, Seat C. A stranger grabbed my 9-year-old's hair and slammed her face into the tray table. 3 times. Blood everywhere. I made one call. Patricia had no idea she'd just beaten an FAA chief inspector's daughter. By landing, her entire life was over. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Row 23, Seat C. That's where I watched a stranger beat my 9-year-old daughter until blood ran down her face. We were 35,000 feet over Kansas when HOA President Patricia Carmichael decided my little girl's crying was disrupting her first-class experience, so she marched back to economy, grabbed Lily by the hair, and slammed her head into the tray table. 3 times. Passengers screamed. Flight attendants rushed forward. And I sat there, 2 rows back, making one phone call. Patricia had no idea the annoyed passenger she just assaulted in front of 200 witnesses was the daughter of the FAA's chief safety inspector. By the time we landed, every person on that plane, including Patricia, would be grounded indefinitely. This is what happens when you assault a child at 35,000 feet. Drop your country in the comments and smash subscribe. Justice is about to reach cruising altitude. Lily's hand was shaking in mine as we stood at gate B14. Her other hand clutched Peanut, the gray stuffed elephant that hadn't left her side since the accident 4 years ago. The accident that took her mother. The accident that made my brilliant, joyful little girl terrified of vehicles moving faster than walking speed. Daddy, what if the plane crashes like Mommy's car? 23 years as an aviation safety inspector, and nothing in my training prepared me for that question. I knelt down to her level, careful not to let her see the crack in my composure. She was 9 years old and shouldn't have to carry this fear. But trauma doesn't care about what children should or shouldn't experience. Baby, planes are the safest way to travel. I inspect them for a living. I promise you're safe. Her brown eyes, so much like her mother's, searched my face for any hint of doubt. Finding none, she nodded slowly, then buried her face against Peanut's worn fabric. This was her first flight since the crash. Hell, it was her first time in anything faster than a city bus since we lost Sarah. But my mother was dying 2 states away, and some things you can't avoid forever. Lily wanted to say goodbye to Grandma. I was so damn proud of her for being brave enough to try. I'd booked us in economy, seats 23C and 23D. I fly hundreds of times a year for work, usually incognito so I can observe operations without crew getting nervous, and I've never needed first-class luxury. What I needed was to sit next to my daughter and hold her hand through every second of this flight. What I didn't know was that 200 feet forward in the cabin, Patricia Carmichael was already making everyone's life miserable. I didn't witness Patricia's boarding personally, but flight attendant Jake Morrison would later describe it in his statement with barely contained disgust. She'd swept onto the plane like royalty entering a throne room, dragging designer luggage that probably cost more than Jake made in a month. Diamond earrings. Silk scarf. Perfectly manicured nails drumming impatiently against the leather of her seat as she surveyed her domain. I specifically requested away from families, she'd announced before her seatbelt was even fastened. Jake had smiled professionally, the smile flight attendant's perfect after dealing with 1,000 Patricias. Ma'am, there are no families in first class today. Good. Keep it that way. He should have recognized the warning signs then. The slight slur in her words. The way she'd already ordered her first vodka tonic before takeoff. The entitled set of her jaw that said she viewed everyone around her as servants. But Jake was professional. He brought her drink. He smiled. He moved on. Meanwhile, 40 rows back, Lily and I were settling into our seats. Window or middle? I asked, though I already knew. Middle, she whispered. So you're between me and everything. Between her and the world. Between her and disaster. Between her and every fear that haunted her since the drunk driver T-boned Sarah's sedan on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was 47 years old, decorated Air Force veteran, FAA Chief Safety Inspector with authority over every commercial aircraft in the region. I'd investigated crashes, grounded pilots, shut down operations that violated safety protocols. I had the kind of institutional power that made airline executives nervous when I walked into a room. But I couldn't protect my daughter from her own trauma. I buckled her in carefully, adjusted Peanut on her lap, and handed her the noise-canceling headphones. She has sensory processing disorder, loud noises overwhelm her system, trigger panic responses, make the world feel like it's attacking her. The headphones help. Music helps. Knowing I'm right there helps. See? Just you, me, and Peanut on an adventure to see Grandma. She tried to smile. It almost reached her eyes. The engines spooled up with their characteristic whine. Lily's grip on my hand tightened until I could feel every bone in her small fingers. Her breathing quickened. But she didn't cry. She squeezed her eyes shut, pressed Peanut against her chest, and breathed through it. The acceleration pushed us back into our seats. The nose lifted. The wheels left the ground. And my baby girl flew for the first time since we lost her mother. "You're doing it," I whispered. "You're flying, Lily." When she opened her eyes, they were wet but clear. Like Mommy used to. Exactly like Mommy used to. Sarah had been fearless. Skydiver, rock climber, the kind of person who saw life as an adventure to be grabbed with both hands. Lily inherited her mother's courage, buried somewhere under layers of trauma and fear. Moments like this, when she pushed through despite the terror, I saw Sarah looking back at me. The first 30 minutes were smooth. Lily kept the headphones on, watching clouds drift past the window, occasionally glancing at me for reassurance. I stayed present, attentive, hyper-aware of every shift in her breathing. This was manageable. This was going to be okay. And then we hit turbulence. The seatbelt sign chimed on. The captain's voice came through calm and professional. "Folks, we've got some moderate chop ahead. Flight attendants, please take your seats." I felt the first bump and immediately looked at Lily. Her eyes went wide. The second bump made her gasp. By the third, her breathing was accelerating into panic territory. "It's okay, baby. Just bumpy air. We're completely safe." But turbulence doesn't care about logic. For someone with sensory processing disorder, it's not just uncomfortable, it's overwhelming. Every drop feels like falling. Every shudder feels like breaking apart. The world becomes chaos. Lily started crying. Not screaming, not tantrum crying, just tears streaming down her face and quiet sobs that broke my heart into pieces. "I've got you. Daddy's got you. Nothing bad is going to happen." The woman in seat 23D, I'd later learn her name was Dr. Amelia Santos, trauma surgeon, leaned over with concern in her dark eyes. "Is she okay? Can I help? She's terrified of flying. First time since her mom died in a car accident." Understanding flooded Dr. Santos's face. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small stress ball. "Honey, squeeze this as hard as you can. It helps." Lily took it with trembling hands and squeezed. It helped a little. Not enough. The turbulence worsened. The plane bounced and shuddered. Lily's crying grew louder, still not screaming, still not disruptive by any reasonable standard, but audible in the quiet cabin. I pulled her close, let her bury her face against my shoulder, murmured every calming word I knew. Dr. Santos talked to her in a gentle voice about breathing, about being brave, about how sometimes our bodies feel scared even when we're safe. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that 40 rows forward, Patricia Carmichael was reaching her breaking point. Jake Morrison would later testify that Patricia pressed the call button 4 times during that turbulence. For times, he'd walked up to her seat with professional patience wearing thin. "There's a child crying somewhere on this plane. Ma'am, we have moderate turbulence. Many passengers are uncomfortable. I paid for first class to avoid screaming children. The child isn't in first class, ma'am. I don't care where it is. Make it stop." By the third vodka tonic, Jake had tried to cut her off, but she'd gotten belligerent. Patricia was visibly intoxicated. By the fourth call button, she was furious. "That brat has been crying for 20 minutes. Ma'am, please lower your voice. Don't you tell me what to do. I'm a paying customer. First class. Do you understand what that means?" Jake understood exactly what it meant. It meant Patricia thought she owned the aircraft. It meant she viewed other passengers, especially children, as lesser beings who should be silent or removed. It meant she was 3 drinks past reasonable and getting worse. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to remain in your seat." But Patricia was already unbuckling. "I'll handle this myself." I was focused entirely on Lily when it happened. Her panic attack had peaked, she was hyperventilating now, couldn't catch her breath, making those desperate gasping sounds that trigger every protective instinct a father has. "Breathe with me, baby. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You're safe. I promise you're safe." Dr. Santos had her hand on Lily's back, rubbing gentle circles. "You're doing great, sweetie. This feeling will pass. You're so brave." The turbulence was finally easing. Another few minutes and Lily would start to calm down. We were managing the crisis. And then someone ripped the headphones off my daughter's head. Lily screamed, the sudden sensory assault of noise flooding back, the shock of rough hands grabbing her, and I looked up into the rage-twisted face of Patricia Carmichael. "Shut up." Time has a strange quality in moments of violence. Everything slows down and speeds up simultaneously. I saw Patricia's hand tangled in Lily's hair. I saw my daughter's face contorted in terror and pain. I was already moving, already reaching. But I wasn't fast enough. Wham! Patricia slammed Lily's head down into the tray table. The sound was sickening. Flesh and bone meeting hard plastic. Lily's scream cut off into a choked cry. Blood appeared immediately, her nose crushed against the table edge. "Shut up." Wham! Second impact. Lily's forehead this time. The crack echoed in the cabin. More blood. Lily trying to scream but no sound coming out, just shock and agony. I was halfway out of my seat, hands reaching, the world narrowed to a tunnel of absolute focus. "Shut up." Wham! The third impact split Lily's forehead open. Blood sprayed across the tray table, across Patricia's designer sleeve, across Peanut as the elephant tumbled to the floor. And then my hands closed on Patricia's wrist. 23 years ago, the Air Force taught me exactly how much pressure to apply to a wrist joint to cause compliance without permanent damage. Those lessons don't fade. I twisted Patricia's arm away from Lily with precise, controlled force. She shrieked and released my daughter's hair. I stood fully, putting myself between them, keeping my grip on her wrist locked. "Get your hands off my daughter." My voice came out cold. Flat. The tone I use when I'm grounding an aircraft for safety violations. No anger in it because anger is messy and I needed absolute clarity. Patricia's face was flushed red from alcohol and rage. "Your brat was disturbing my flight." Behind me, Dr. Santos was already moving, grabbing napkins from my seat pocket, applying pressure to Lily's bleeding face, speaking in urgent medical tones. "Someone get the first aid kit now. Possible concussion, definite nasal fracture." Lily was screaming now. Full-throated, terrified, in pain. The sound ripped through me but I couldn't let go of Patricia. Couldn't turn away from the threat. Passengers were on their feet. Shouting. A college kid in 24A had his phone out, recording. A retired teacher in 22B was yelling, "She attacked that child." I saw everything. Flight attendant Jake came sprinting down the aisle, another attendant behind him carrying the medical kit. His face went white when he saw the blood. And then another man stood up from seat 18B, stocky, controlled, with the unmistakable bearing of law enforcement. Air Marshal Derek Chen, though I didn't know that yet. "Sir, I'm a federal air marshal. I've got her." I transferred my grip on Patricia to Derek. Our eyes met for half a second and something passed between us, professional recognition, mutual understanding that this situation was now federal. I turned back to Lily. Dr. Santos had Lily's face tilted back, napkins pressed against her nose. Blood soaked through immediately, dripping down my daughter's chin, staining her favorite yellow shirt. The shirt Sarah bought her last birthday before the accident. "Lily, baby, I'm here. I'm right here." She couldn't answer. Couldn't do anything but cry and bleed and shake. Her eyes found mine, and the terror in them, the absolute betrayal of safety, would haunt me for years. "Nasal fracture for sure," Dr. Santos said, her trauma surgeon training evident in the calm efficiency of her movements. "Forehead laceration needs stitches. And we need to watch for concussion symptoms." She took 3 direct impacts. Jake appeared with the first aid kit. Ice pack. Gauze. Medical gloves. Dr. Santos worked with practiced precision while I held Lily's hand and whispered promises I would spend the next 7 years keeping. "She's never going to hurt you again. Never. I promise you, baby." Behind me, Patricia was still protesting. "Let go of me. I barely touched her." The brat was. "Ma'am," Derek's voice cut through, official and unyielding. "You need to remain silent. You're being detained for assault aboard a commercial aircraft." "Assault? Assault?" She was screaming. Everyone on this plane wanted her to shut up. The retired teacher in 22B stood up. "That's a lie." She was quietly crying. "You attacked her." Other voices joined in. "I saw the whole thing. You grabbed her by the hair. Someone call the police. There's blood everywhere." The cabin erupted into chaos. Captain Sandra Reeves's voice came over the intercom, firm and commanding, "Passengers, please return to your seats. Flight crew is handling an incident. I repeat, return to your seats." But I was already pulling out my phone. Making the call that would change everything. Point 3. Speed dial number 2, FAA Emergency Operations. It rang twice. "FAA Emergency Operations, this is Walker. This is Chief Inspector Robert Hayes, badge 4721 Alpha." The shift in the operator's tone was immediate. "Everyone at FAA knows my name." "Yes, sir. How can we assist?" "I need immediate law enforcement coordination at destination airport. Federal assault on a minor aboard United Flight 2847, currently over Kansas en route to Denver." Patricia's head snapped around. Her alcohol-flushed face went pale. "Suspect is in custody via federal air marshal. I'm handling witness coordination. I need FBI, local PD, and airport security on the tarmac. Full passenger manifest lockdown on arrival, nobody leaves this aircraft until I clear them." "Sir, confirming, you're requesting federal response for assault on a minor?" "Affirmative. The minor is my daughter. She's 9 years old. The suspect beat her until her nose broke and her forehead split open. She did this in front of 200 witnesses. We have video evidence from multiple phones. I want maximum federal charges." "Understood, sir. I'm notifying FBI now. Denver field office will coordinate. Do you need medical standing by?" I looked at Lily, blood still flowing despite Dr. Santos's efforts, eyes unfocused, shaking. "Yes. Paramedics on the tarmac. She needs hospital transport immediately. Done. Anything else? Lock down this aircraft's flight data and cabin recordings. This is an active federal investigation as of right now. Consider it done, Inspector Hayes. I'm very sorry about your daughter. Just make sure the federal prosecutor knows I'm testifying personally. I ended the call. The entire first-class section had gone silent. Passengers near enough to hear my side of the conversation were staring. Patricia's face had gone from pale to gray. You're FAA. I finally looked at her directly. Chief Inspector. I oversee aviation safety for this entire region. I have authority to ground any aircraft, any pilot, any crew member, and any passenger I deem a safety risk. I paused. You just became a permanent safety risk. I didn't know. You didn't know you were beating the daughter of a federal aviation official? That's your defense? That you only assault children when you think there won't be consequences? Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Derek Chen had cuffed her wrists in front, professional restraint, not cruel, but absolutely secure. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you exercise that right. Captain Reeves's voice came over the PA again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've experienced a serious incident in the cabin. This aircraft is now under federal investigation authority. Inspector Hayes of the FAA will be coordinating with flight crew. Please remain calm and seated. Then her voice clicked to a private channel. I could hear it through Jake's handset. Jake, bring Inspector Hayes to the flight deck. Now. The cockpit of a commercial airliner in flight is normally a sanctuary of focused calm. Instruments glowing. Radio chatter. The infinite sky beyond the windscreen. I've been in hundreds of cockpits over my career, and the feeling never gets old. But nothing about this situation was normal. Captain Sandra Reeves turned in her seat as I entered. She was a 20-year veteran with gray streaking her dark hair and the kind of steady eyes you want in a pilot. I'd reviewed her safety record years ago during a routine audit, spotless. Inspector Hayes. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. I want to say first that I am profoundly sorry about what happened to your daughter. That should never happen on my aircraft. It's not your fault, Captain. The hell it isn't. Someone got drunk enough to assault a child under my command. That's a failure. She gestured to her co-pilot. Talk to me. What do you need from my crew? I'd known I could count on her. Good pilots take responsibility for everything that happens in their sky. I need the flight data recorder secured. The cabin audio recordings locked down. Every camera angle preserved. This is going to federal court and I want ironclad evidence. Done. I've already flagged the black box for investigation hold. Audio's protected. What else? Witness statements from nearby passengers. Jake's already started, but I need written accounts from everyone who saw the assault. Especially anyone who interacted with Patricia Carmichael before the incident. Jake said she was drinking heavily. How many drinks? 3 vodka tonics that he served. Possibly more she brought on board. He tried to cut her off but she got aggressive. My jaw tightened. FAA regulations limit alcohol service precisely because it impairs judgment and increases incident risk. Patricia had been a disaster waiting to happen. I want the alcohol service logs. Jake's statement about her intoxication. Everything. You'll have it before we land. Sandra paused. Inspector, I know you're in federal authority mode right now, but, how's Lily? The professional mask cracked slightly. Broken nose. Concussion. 8 stitches minimum for her forehead. Trauma that'll take years to heal. Jesus. Sandra's hands tightened on the yoke. We're 50 minutes out from Denver. You want me to declare an emergency? We can get priority landing, cut that time. I considered it. But Dr. Santos had Lily stable, and an emergency landing would create more chaos, more stress. No. Normal approach. But I need your coordination with ground authorities. Nobody leaves this plane until FBI clears them. You've got it. I'll make the announcement. And Sandra? That woman is never flying commercially again. I'm issuing a lifetime ban the moment we touch down. Her smile was grim. Good. While Captain Reeves flew the plane and I stood guard over my bleeding daughter, Jake Morrison moved through the cabin with a clipboard, collecting statements. The consistency was damning. I had a clear view of the entire incident. The child, Lily, I heard her father call her, was crying quietly during turbulence. She was clearly frightened but not disruptive. The woman from first class came storming back, already yelling before she reached the child. She ripped the headphones off the girl's head, grabbed her by the hair, and slammed her face into the tray table 3 times. 3 times. I've taught children for 30 years and I've never seen such unprovoked violence. That woman should be in prison. I've got video of the second and third impacts. Want to make sure that helps prosecute this psycho. The little girl wasn't even screaming before the attack, just scared crying because of turbulence. That Karen came out of nowhere and just started beating her. I've never seen anything like it. Hope she rots. As a medical professional, I can confirm that the child sustained significant injuries requiring immediate hospital care: nasal fracture, grade 2 concussion minimum, laceration requiring 6 to 8 stitches. The force necessary to cause these injuries was substantial and deliberate. This was not an accident or a single strike, this was repeated, intentional violence against a minor. I treated the child as best I could with available supplies, but she needs emergency care. I'm willing to provide expert medical testimony in any legal proceedings. I was working on my laptop when I heard screaming. Looked up and saw that woman beating a kid's head against the tray table. Everyone around was yelling at her to stop. The girl's dad pulled her off, but the damage was done, blood everywhere. That dad showed incredible restraint. If someone did that to my kid, I don't know if I could have been so controlled. 17 passengers total provided written statements. Not one supported Patricia. Several mentioned she appeared intoxicated. Multiple people noted the attack was unprovoked. 6 had video evidence on their phones. And then there was Derek Chen's official report as a federal air marshal. At approximately 14:37 hours, while conducting routine observation aboard United Flight 2847, I witnessed passenger Patricia Carmichael, seat 2B, leave her first-class seat during active seatbelt sign, proceed to economy section, and physically assault a minor child, later identified as Lily Hayes, age 9. Subject Carmichael grabbed the minor by the hair and struck the minor's head against the tray table 3 times with significant force. Subject appeared intoxicated and was verbally aggressive, shouting at the child to shut up. I immediately moved to detain subject. Subject's father, later identified as FAA Chief Inspector Robert Hayes, had already restrained subject and transferred custody to me without incident. Child sustained visible injuries including facial bleeding and head trauma. I detained subject in seat 2B with plastic restraints pending law enforcement arrival at destination. Subject showed no remorse and continued to claim the child deserved it for crying. I recommend federal charges for assault on a minor aboard aircraft, interference with flight crew, and operating under the influence on a commercial flight. The attack was unprovoked, violent, and witnessed by approximately 40 passengers. By the time we began our descent into Denver, the case against Patricia Carmichael was airtight. She just didn't know how much worse it was about to get. The seatbelt sign chimed on for landing. Lily had stopped bleeding, but she looked like she'd been through a war. Gauze taped across her nose. Butterfly bandages holding her forehead laceration closed until proper stitches. Bruising already darkening both eyes. She was in shock, that glazed 1,000-yard stare trauma victims get. Dr. Santos stayed next to her, monitoring for concussion symptoms, while I held her hand and made promises. When we land, paramedics are going to take very good care of you. They'll make sure you're okay. Is the mean lady going to hurt me again? Her voice was so small. Never. I promise you, she's never getting near you again. 10 rows behind us, Patricia sat rigid in her first-class seat where Derek had moved her for containment. The flight attendants had relocated other first-class passengers away from her. She sat alone, hands cuffed in front of her, staring at the bloodstains on her designer sleeve. Jake told me later that she tried to justify it. Multiple times. The child was disturbing everyone. Someone had to do something. I barely touched her. She's being dramatic. Do you know who I am? I'm the HOA president of Willow Heights. I know lawyers. But her voice got smaller each time. The reality was sinking in. The alcohol was wearing off. And 40 witnesses were all telling the same story: she'd beaten a 9-year-old child on a commercial flight. Captain Reeves came over the PA one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final descent into Denver International Airport. I need to inform you that this aircraft is under federal investigation authority. When we land, federal agents will board first. All passengers will be required to remain seated until cleared by authorities. This is not optional, this is federal jurisdiction. Your cooperation is appreciated and mandatory. A murmur ran through the cabin. Some confusion. Some annoyance. But mostly, people understood. They'd witnessed a crime. They were witnesses now, whether they wanted to be or not. I looked out the window at Denver sprawling below us. Somewhere down there, FBI agents were mobilizing. Police cars were being positioned. Paramedics were standing by. And my daughter, my brave, traumatized, bleeding daughter, was about to get justice. The wheels touched down smooth despite everything. Captain Reeves was a professional. The aircraft rolled down the runway, slowing, turning toward the gate. Except we didn't go to a regular gate. We rolled to a remote area of the tarmac, away from terminals, away from regular traffic. And surrounding us were 12 police vehicles, 3 FBI SUVs, 2 ambulances, and enough federal agents to raid a cartel. Captain Reeves's voice: "Ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived at Denver. However, this aircraft is under federal hold. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Federal authorities will board shortly. Thank you for your patience." The cabin went silent. You could feel the tension, 200 people realizing this was serious. That whatever happened on this flight was bigger than a regular incident. The door opened. FBI came aboard first. The lead agent was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and sharper presence. She scanned the cabin, spotted me in the back with my bloodied daughter, and her expression went cold with fury. "Inspector Hayes." "That's me. Special Agent Sarah Mitchell, FBI Denver Field Office." "Where's the suspect?" "Seat 2B, first class. In custody of Air Marshal Chen." She nodded to her team and they moved forward like a precision unit. I heard Patricia's voice rise in protest: "This is ridiculous. You can't. Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault on a minor aboard a commercial aircraft, a federal offense. You have the right to remain silent." The Miranda rights echoed through the cabin. Passengers craned to see. Phones came out despite instructions not to film. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. Agent Mitchell came back to me while her team processed Patricia. "And this is the victim?" Lily looked up at the FBI agent with terrified eyes. Agent Mitchell's expression softened immediately, the shift from hard federal authority to protective empathy that good agents master. "Hi, sweetheart. My name is Sarah. I'm with the FBI and I'm here to make sure you're safe now. Can you tell me your name?" "Lily." Barely a whisper. "Lily, that's a beautiful name. I'm going to make sure the person who hurt you never, ever hurts anyone again. Okay. Lily nodded, then buried her face against my chest. Agent Mitchell looked at me and I saw a mother's rage behind her professional mask. Paramedics are standing by. We'll escort you off first. I need to ensure witness statements are preserved. I've got 17 written accounts, multiple videos. Already coordinated with your FAA Ops Center. We'll collect phones, copy evidence, return them within 2 hours. Your people were thorough. Good. I stood carefully, lifting Lily in my arms. She was too big to really carry anymore, but I'd carry her until my arms gave out if she needed it. And Agent Mitchell? I want maximum federal charges. I'm testifying personally. Her smile was grim. I figured. The U.S. attorney was very interested when I told her a sitting FAA chief inspector's daughter was the victim. This is going to be a high-profile prosecution. Good. Make an example of her. We moved toward the door. Behind us, I could hear Patricia still protesting as they lifted her from her seat. This is insane. I barely. Derek Chen's voice, flat and official, "Ma'am, you slammed a child's head into a tray table 3 times. You broke her nose. There are 40 witnesses and multiple videos. Please stop talking." The cabin erupted in applause. 200 passengers clapping as they led Patricia Carmichael off the plane in handcuffs. Children's Hospital Colorado has a pediatric trauma unit that sees the worst cases. Car accidents. Abuse. Things that should never happen to kids. The staff has that particular combination of competence and compassion you only find in people who've dedicated their lives to protecting children. They took one look at Lily and moved. CT scan for concussion protocol. X-rays for her nose. Local anesthetic and 8 stitches for her forehead. Exam for any other injuries we'd missed in the chaos. Child life specialist to help her process trauma. Everything moved with efficient urgency. I stayed with her through all of it, holding her hand, explaining each step. They need to take pictures of your bones to make sure nothing else is broken. Will it hurt? Not at all. You just lie still while the machine takes pictures. Like my camera. Just like your camera. Except this one sees through skin. Her eyes went wide. Can it see peanut stuffing? Probably. I managed a smile. Want to test it? They let her hold Peanut during the X-ray. The tech showed her the image afterward, Lily's fractured nasal bones clear on the scan, and the faint outline of Peanut's polyfill stuffing in her arms. Look. Peanut's insides. A 9-year-old finding wonder even through trauma. God, she was her mother's daughter. Final medical assessment. Nasal fracture, would heal with time, slight bump would remain, grade 2 concussion, needed monitoring, rest, gradual return to activities, 8-stitch laceration on forehead, would scar but fade, severe bruising across face and scalp, acute psychological trauma. They recommended immediate therapy. The doctor, a gentleman in his 50s named Dr. Patel, sat down with me in the family consultation room while Lily was with the child life specialist. Mr. Hayes, your daughter is physically going to be fine. The breaks will heal. The stitches will dissolve. But the psychological impact of this attack. He paused. She's going to need support. Counseling. Patience. She was already dealing with trauma from losing her mother. This compounds it. I know. My voice came out rough. Whatever she needs. Therapy, medication if necessary, time off school. Whatever it takes. Good. Because the brain heals but the mind remembers. She'll have flashbacks. Nightmares. Anxiety around strangers. It's going to be a long road. We'll walk it together. Dr. Patel studied me. You're remarkably calm for someone whose child was just brutalized. I'm FA. I investigate disasters for a living. Staying calm in crisis is what I do. I met his eyes. But don't mistake calm for unaffected. When this is over, when Lily's asleep and safe, I'm going to fall apart. But right now, she needs me steady. He nodded understanding. You're a good father. I'm a father who let someone hurt his daughter. You didn't let anything happen. You were trapped in an aircraft with a violent drunk. You responded appropriately and protected her the moment you could. Don't carry guilt that isn't yours. But I would carry it anyway. That's what fathers do. While I was at the hospital with Lily, FBI was interrogating Patricia at their Denver field office. Agent Mitchell sent me the video footage later, and watching it was both satisfying and enraging. Patricia sat in an interrogation room, still in her blood-stained designer clothes, makeup smeared, hair disheveled. The alcohol had worn off completely and reality was setting in. Agent Mitchell, Mrs. Carmichael, let's start with what happened on Flight 2847. Patricia, I want my lawyer. Agent Mitchell, that's your right. We can wait. She stands to leave. Patricia, wait. I didn't do anything wrong. That child was disturbing everyone. Someone had to make her stop. Agent Mitchell sits back down. By make her stop, you mean assault her? Patricia, I didn't assault anyone. I tapped her to get her attention. Agent Mitchell slides over printed photos. This is Lily Hayes at the hospital 2 hours ago. Broken nose. 8 stitches. Grade 2 concussion. You call that a tap? Patricia's face went white looking at the photos. Patricia, I barely touched her. She must have hit the table when the plane bounced. Agent Mitchell pulls out tablet, plays video from passenger's phone. This is from seat 24A. Watch closely. The video was brutal. Crystal clear footage of Patricia grabbing Lily's hair, slamming her head down. Once. Twice. 3 times. Lily's screams. My voice yelling. Blood spraying. Agent Mitchell, still want to claim you barely touched her. Patricia couldn't speak. Just stared at the video playing on loop. Agent Mitchell, we have 6 more videos from different angles. We have 17 written witness statements. We have the Federal Air Marshal's official report. We have the flight crew's testimony that you were drunk and aggressive before the attack. And we have Lily's medical records showing injuries consistent with repeated blunt force trauma. Patricia, she was crying. For 20 minutes. Everyone on that plane was annoyed. Agent Mitchell, 14 witnesses say she was quietly crying during turbulence. That she wasn't disruptive. That you had no reason to even approach her, much less assault her. Patricia, I had 3 drinks. The turbulence scared me. I wasn't thinking clearly. Agent Mitchell, so you were intoxicated on an aircraft, became violent due to impairment, and attacked a 9-year-old child having a panic attack. You understand that makes this worse, not better. Patricia's lawyer arrived 20 minutes into the interrogation and immediately shut her down. But the damage was done. She'd admitted intoxication. She'd admitted the attack. She'd shown 0 remorse. The federal prosecutor had everything she needed. While building the federal case, FBI and local authorities dug into Patricia's background. What they found painted a picture of a woman spiraling out of control for years. Previous flight incidents, found through airline records. 2019, American Airlines Flight 447, complaint filed by passenger in seat 8D. Patricia, in first class, berated the passenger for having a crying baby. Threatened to handle it herself if the mother didn't shut that thing up. Flight crew intervened. Patricia given warning. Allowed to continue flying. 2021, United Flight 1893, formal complaint from flight attendant. Patricia demanded a family with 2 small children be removed from first class. They'd legitimately purchased tickets. Became verbally abusive when told no. Threw her drink at the attendant. Escorted off plane by security. Settled with airline out of court. Allowed to continue flying. 2022, Delta Flight 736, attempted to physically grab a toddler from his mother's arms because the child was kicking her seat. Father intervened. Patricia claimed she was helping the overwhelmed mother. Crew moved the family. Patricia given final warning. Still allowed to fly. Airlines had flagged her. But they'd kept taking her money. Kept letting her board. Because profit mattered more than pattern recognition. Until she assaulted my daughter and found out what real consequences looked like. Patricia had been HOA president of Willow Heights subdivision for 9 years. And her tenure was a horror show of abuse and harassment. 47 formal complaints filed against her personally, 3 lawsuits settled quietly. HOA insurance paid out $180,000 total, known for targeting families with young children. Weaponized HOA rules to fine parents for playground noise, sidewalk chalk, children's toys visible from street. 1 family driven to sell their home after Patricia fined them $3,000 for their toddler's birthday party, disrupting neighborhood quiet hours. The real bombshell came when forensic accountants looked at HOA finances. Patricia had embezzled $43,000 over 5 years. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there. Then growing bolder, $2,000, $5,000. She'd hidden it in fake vendor invoices and padded maintenance contracts. And where did the money go? First-class plane tickets. Hotel stays. Designer clothes. She'd been funding her entitled lifestyle by stealing from her neighbors. The same neighbors she terrorized with petty violations and harassment. State charges were filed within a week: embezzlement, fraud, misuse of homeowner funds. Patricia's entire life was collapsing. And at the center of it all was the moment she beat a 9-year-old girl on Flight 2847. The federal bail hearing happened 3 days after the assault. I attended with Lily, who'd insisted on coming despite my protests. I want to see her face when they lock her up, Daddy. My 9-year-old daughter, already understanding that justice requires witnesses. Federal Courtroom, Denver. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to our flight attendant Jake, thankfully, presiding. U.S. Attorney Rebecca Chen presenting for prosecution. Patricia's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Mark Stevens, doing his best with an impossible case. U.S. Attorney Chen, Your Honor, the United States requests remand without bail. Judge Morrison, that's a significant request, counselor. Make your case. U.S. Attorney Chen, the defendant violently assaulted a 9-year-old child aboard a commercial aircraft. She grabbed the victim by the hair and slammed her head into a tray table 3 times, causing a broken nose, concussion, and lacerations requiring 8 stitches. This assault was witnessed by approximately 40 passengers and recorded on multiple phones. The defendant has shown no remorse and has attempted to justify her actions by claiming the child deserved it for crying. She pulled up the hospital photos on the courtroom screen. Lily's battered face. The stitches. The bruising. The judge's expression hardened. U.S. Attorney Chen, furthermore, investigation has revealed a pattern of aggressive behavior toward children on flights. The defendant has been flagged by 3 major airlines for harassment and threats. She has pending state charges for embezzlement. And most relevantly, the FAA has issued a permanent no-fly order. She is banned from all commercial aircraft indefinitely. While she poses minimal flight risk in the traditional sense, she poses significant danger to public safety. Judge Morrison, Mr. Stevens. Response. Public Defender Stevens, Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal record. She has ties to the community as HOA president. U.S. Attorney Chen, she's been removed from that position due to embezzlement charges, Your Honor. Judge Morrison, is that accurate, Mr. Stevens? Public Defender Stevens, sighs. Yes, Your Honor. However, Mrs. Carmichael maintains she was under significant stress during the flight. The turbulence, combined with alcohol, impaired her judgment. She deeply regrets. I stood up. Protocol says you don't interrupt court proceedings, but I wasn't asking permission. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Morrison looked at me with raised eyebrows. And you are? Robert Hayes, FAA Chief Safety Inspector. The victim is my daughter, Lily. I gestured to where Lily sat in the gallery, visible scar on her forehead. The judge's expression shifted. Proceed, Inspector Hayes. Your Honor, Patricia Carmichael didn't show regret on that aircraft. She showed entitlement and rage. When I identified myself as FAA, when federal air marshals detained her, she continued to insist my daughter deserved to be beaten for crying. She has shown zero remorse in FBI interrogations. And her pattern of behavior suggests she views children as acceptable targets when they inconvenience her. Public Defender Stevens, Your Honor, Inspector Hayes is understandably emotional. I'm not emotional, Counselor. I'm factual. I've investigated aviation incidents for 23 years. I know the difference between impaired judgment and malicious intent. Your client showed malicious intent. Judge Morrison, thank you, Inspector Hayes. Please be seated. She reviewed the case file for a long moment. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison, Mrs. Carmichael, please stand. Patricia stood. She'd lost weight in 3 days. Looked 10 years older. The designer clothes were gone, replaced with detention center orange. Judge Morrison, I've reviewed the evidence. Video footage of the assault. Witness statements. Medical reports. Your prior incidents with airlines. The embezzlement charges. And I've heard Inspector Hayes's testimony about your lack of remorse. She paused. Bail is set at $500,000, cash or bond. Patricia gasped. Her lawyer's shoulders sagged. Judge Morrison, however, given the defendant's financial situation and pending embezzlement charges, I suspect raising bail will be difficult. Mrs. Carmichael, you will remain in federal detention pending trial. The gavel came down. Patricia turned to look at me, her face crumpling. I can't. I don't have, please. I met her eyes with zero sympathy. You traumatized my daughter. You broke her nose. You gave her nightmares that'll last years. And you did it because she cried during turbulence. Enjoy detention. Lily squeezed my hand. She looks sad, Daddy. She is sad, baby. Because actions have consequences and she's finally facing hers.